San Francisco, the city's so nice you'll step in twice. There's an area where homeless people were urinating and defecating, and it was starting to annoy the people breaking into cars. So the city tried to build a public toilet last year, but then gave up when the cost hit $1.7 million. Not $1.7 million for a public toilet system, $1.7 million for one toilet. And this wasn't some magic toilet that catches your phone when you drop it. It's no wonder that in 2021, San Francisco issued only 2,000 permits for new homes. Sure, there are people living in the streets, but that's because we want to make sure the apartments they don't live in are perfect. I don't fear AI anymore because it couldn't possibly be any more robotic than the humans who run things now.
Bill Maher has shifted his attention to San Francisco, and his assessment of the city is direct and unfiltered. The veteran commentator questioned the leadership of Gavin Newsom and Mayor Daniel Lurie, arguing that decisions at the top have contributed to the city's decline from what many once admired. Maher's critique was pointed, firm, and concise. If you appreciate sharp political analysis, consider subscribing as we break it down.
San Francisco in the last few years has seen 11 Walgreens and 6 CVS stores just give up and close because that town seems simply beyond law, which is heartbreaking because I, like so many people, love that city, and I don't think it's corny to admit, yes, I left my heart in San Francisco. Also, my wallet and iPhone.
Maher has raised serious concerns about how public safety in the city has deteriorated in recent years, and he addresses the issue without softening his words. He describes an environment where retail theft appears increasingly visible, with individuals entering stores, taking items, and leaving without facing immediate consequences. In his view, the lack of deterrence has created a troubling pattern. He argues that this is no longer isolated misconduct, but behavior that feels increasingly routine. Maher also points to the ongoing problem of car break-ins, noting how parked vehicles are frequently targeted, damaged, and searched through, then abandoned as if nothing happened. For him, the deeper issue is not only the incidents themselves, but what he sees as insufficient response from leadership. When confidence in basic law enforcement erodes, he contends, it sends a broader signal that the city is failing to safeguard residents and businesses who follow the rules.
Bay Area citizens have been complaining in recent years about all the human feces in the streets, but now the streets are full of something else. They call it San Francisco snow. It's glass, piles and piles of shattered glass everywhere from car windows being smashed. It's so routine to have this happen to any parked car that people purposefully leave the windows down and the glove compartment open so thieves can see there's nothing of value. Or they leave a note on the car politely assuring the thief that there's nothing worth stealing and please don't break the windows.
The circumstances have reached a point where many observers are asking a straightforward question. Why does this type of activity appear so widespread in San Francisco and other large California cities? Maher points to state-level policies as a central factor. Under current law, theft involving property valued below a certain dollar amount is often categorized as a lower-level offense, which can result in lighter penalties. In Maher's view, that policy shift did more than adjust sentencing guidelines. It changed incentives. He argues that once limits are clearly defined, some individuals learn how to operate within them, taking advantage of what they perceive as reduced consequences. The outcome, he suggests, is predictable. Incidents become more frequent, enforcement appears inconsistent, and public confidence declines. Maher contends that when laws are perceived as lenient, they may fail to deter misconduct. Rather than reassuring residents and business owners, he argues, the current approach risks creating a cycle in which repeat offenses continue without meaningful interruption.
What is so disturbing here is not just that there's more crime and mayhem, it's the audacity of it all. Like there's no lines anymore that can't be crossed. Like don't walk on a stage during a live show.
Maher suggests that what troubles many observers most is the sense of openness surrounding these incidents in San Francisco. In his view, the boundaries that once discouraged misconduct now feel blurred. He argues that some individuals no longer attempt to conceal their actions, instead behaving in ways that appear increasingly public and unrestrained. He describes scenarios in which someone enters a store, takes merchandise, and leaves, or damages a parked vehicle and searches through it without visible urgency. According to Maher, the absence of visible deterrence can foster a perception that there are few immediate consequences. Over time, he says that perception can shape behavior. Maher contends that when accountability seems inconsistent, confidence in the system erodes. Businesses may scale back operations, residents can grow discouraged, and disruptive activity risks becoming normalized. For him, the deeper concern is not only the incidents themselves, but the broader cultural shift that can follow when standards appear unevenly enforced.
Police still need reform, yes, But we can't just allow them to be hunted and targeted for assassination, as has happened over 100 times in 2021. I know there are big issues behind crime, like income inequality and racism, that need to be addressed. But let's not get so wrapped up in becoming great again or building back better that we forget not to become El Salvador.
Maher presents a direct argument for reinforcing and properly resourcing the San Francisco Police Department, maintaining that restoring public order requires giving law enforcement clear authority and consistent backing. In his view, sustained limitations on policing have made it more difficult to address ongoing safety concerns. He acknowledges that many officers continue to serve with professionalism despite declining morale and strained resources. However, Maher argues that public criticism and political debate over policing policies have had tangible effects. Discussions around reducing police funding, he suggests, were followed by budget adjustments, staffing challenges, and changes in enforcement practices that left departments operating with fewer personnel and tighter constraints. In Maher's view, when officers feel uncertain of support from leadership, hesitation can follow. He contends that any gap in enforcement capacity may be quickly noticed. His central point is that expectations for public safety must align with the level of institutional support provided to those responsible for maintaining it.
San Francisco, the city's so nice you'll step in twice. There's an area where homeless people were urinating and defecating, and it was starting to annoy the people breaking into cars. So the city tried to build a public toilet last year, but then gave up when the cost hit $1.7 million. Not $1.7 million for a public toilet system, $1.7 million for one toilet. And this wasn't some magic toilet that catches your phone when you drop it.
Maher then shifts the discussion from public safety to sanitation, and his criticism remains firm. He references the widely reported issues related to human waste in public areas, which for many observers have come to represent broader concerns about city management. In his view, visitors don't have to look far to notice these conditions, particularly in high-traffic areas such as transit corridors, underpasses, and parts of downtown. He argues that the problem has become so visible that many residents have grown accustomed to it. He connects these sanitation challenges to the city's ongoing homelessness crisis, suggesting that policies intended to show compassion may have overlooked consistent standards for public health and maintenance. For Maher, the issue goes beyond unpleasant optics. He frames it as a governance concern, contending that when a city struggles to maintain clean and functional public spaces, it risks undermining confidence in its leadership and long-term priorities.
Then a private company took pity on San Francisco and offered to build them their toilet for free. But after, quote, project management, construction management, architecture and engineering fees, permits, civic design review, surveys, contract preparation, and cost estimation, the free toilet was still going to cost almost $1 million. You know, if you tack on fees like that, you're not a city, you're an airline.
Maher intensifies his criticism by turning to what he views as a deeper issue within California's bureaucratic structure. To demonstrate his point, he highlights a widely discussed example involving the proposed installation of a single public restroom in San Francisco, reportedly projected to cost around $1.7 million. For Maher, the figure symbolizes a system that has become overly complicated. He notes that even after a private entity reportedly offered to construct the facility at no cost, officials indicated that associated expenses could still approach nearly $1 million. The explanation, he says, involved layers of permitting requirements, regulatory compliance, outside consultants, reviews, and administrative procedures. In Maher's telling, this example reflects what he considers a broader governance challenge, ambitious goals slowed by extensive process. He argues that when bureaucracy expands to this degree, efficiency suffers. Until procedural obstacles are streamlined, he contends, additional funding or well-meaning policy proposals may struggle to produce meaningful results.
Feels like San Francisco is actually proud of being impossible. Asked about the toilet, a spokesman for the Department of Public Works said, "We are a city of public input." Okay, but I'm stepping in public output. Meanwhile, the median time to get approval to build a house there is 627 days. That's 217 days longer than it took to build the Empire State Building. You need 87 permits, 15 from the Planning Commission, 26 from the Public Utilities Commission and the Fire Department, 19 from building inspectors, 17 from the Public Works, 10 related to public spaces, and 1 from a guy in a t-shirt that says Federal Inspector.
Maher argues that San Francisco has grown increasingly difficult to manage, pointing to leadership decisions at both the state and city levels, from Gavin Newsom to Mayor Lurie. In his assessment, the issue is not simply isolated missteps, but a broader administrative structure he believes slows meaningful progress. He contends that extensive layers of rules, committees, and approval processes have created recurring bottlenecks. As he describes it, housing initiatives face prolonged delays, infrastructure projects stretch on for years, and even relatively modest proposals can become entangled in procedural requirements. According to Maher, policy debates often extend far beyond their practical impact, resulting in prolonged discussion without timely resolution. He links this dynamic to rising costs, ongoing maintenance challenges, and public frustration. His criticism centers less on partisan ideology and more on outcomes, arguing that when leadership emphasizes messaging over measurable results, governance can become inefficient and long-standing problems persist.
It's no wonder that in 2021, San Francisco issued only 2,000 permits for new homes. Sure, there are people living in the streets, but that's because we want to make sure the apartments they don't live in are perfect. I don't fear AI anymore because it couldn't possibly be any more robotic than the humans who run things now.
Maher delivers a pointed critique of Governor Newsom and the Mayor Lurie, questioning what he describes as an overly procedural approach to California's development challenges. In his view, current leadership appears constrained by established routines, showing limited flexibility in adjusting policies or responding creatively to evolving concerns. He argues that this rigidity has contributed to ongoing difficulties in San Francisco, where issues such as public safety, homelessness, and infrastructure maintenance continue to generate debate. According to Maher, the city shows visible signs of strain, yet he believes leaders rely heavily on formal processes, committees, and gradual adjustments, rather than sweeping reforms. For Maher, the concern extends beyond policy disagreements. He frames it as a broader leadership test, suggesting that effective governance requires confronting difficult realities directly. At this moment, he maintains, he has not seen sufficient evidence that state or city officials are prepared to pursue the kind of decisive changes he believes are necessary.
So let me finish with this. Not that there was ever any reason to build it in the first place, and not that there would be any reason to do it again. But just as an exercise in realizing how far we've regressed as the can-do people, I think we should all try to imagine how it will go down if we tried to sculpt Mount Rushmore out of a mountain today. First, we'd have to make the mountain handicap accessible, so we could hire handicapped people to work on the side of a mountain. Then there'd be a 10-year delay while we studied the effect of construction noise on the mating habits of woodchucks. Then another 10 years to obtain ethnically sourced dynamite and find a sculptor who doesn't only work from home.
In closing, Maher offers a somber assessment of San Francisco, describing a city once celebrated for innovation and cultural energy that now faces serious challenges tied to public safety, homelessness, and administrative complexity. He references concerns ranging from retail theft and vehicle break-ins to sanitation issues, arguing that these visible problems have affected public confidence. Rather than attributing the situation solely to circumstance, Maher directs his criticism toward leadership, including Governor Gavin Newsom, Mayor Daniel Lurie, and other officials. He characterizes their approach as overly procedural and constrained by bureaucracy, suggesting extensive processes have limited timely action on urgent issues. He also maintains that policy decisions affecting policing and development have had unintended consequences, placing additional strain on residents and local businesses. Still, Maher frames his argument as a push for change rather than resignation. In his view, improvement is possible if leaders prioritize practical outcomes, streamline regulations, and reinforce consistent standards of public order. That wraps up today's discussion. If you found this analysis helpful, consider liking the video and subscribing for more in-depth political coverage. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.